The Israel lobby's campaign to label criticism of Israel and Palestinian solidarity symbols anti-Semitic, as colleagues here have pointed out, puts everyone at risk. And in it, real incidents of anti-Semitism, for instance, attacks on synagogues or schools, become blurred and obscured by the spurious use of the term. This spurious use permits the suppression of Palestine solidarity and facilitates both anti-Palestinian racism and Israel's genocidal campaign against Gaza, as supported by Canada and the US. In Canada, suppression includes the arrival, for instance, recently of the police at a lecture by Professor Mohamed Ayash at York University, a lecture on Palestinian liberation. It also facilitated the home invasions by the police of the Peace 11, those allegedly involved with postering an Indigo bookstore in downtown Toronto, and among whom were various academics, including your colleagues. Within academic scholarship, there is a considerable literature in varied disciplines that examines Jewish subject formation. And I will discuss a few of these as part of trying to understand the Jewish diasporic experience under sort of what we can understand as Zionist hegemony. This is what the Israel lobby actively seeks to suppress are some of the narratives that I'll just provide a few examples of today. So in my early adulthood, a book that had a major impact on my understanding of Zionism and Israel was one that talks about Zionism as a rejection of Jewish diasporic cultures. In particular, those portions of the Jewish community devoted to scholarship and reflection. And this is Benjamin Beit Halachmi's book, Original Sins, Reflection on the History of Zionism in Israel. A now professor emeritus of psychology and resident of Haifa, Israel. The book was published 30 years ago. Beit Halachmi in that wide-ranging book discusses how Zionism aimed to create the anti-Jew, the aggressive warrior who would not cow to violence and in lieu becomes its perpetrator. The heroization of the Jewish warrior in Israel is central to this creation of the modern Jewish Zionist subject. As Beit Halachmi writes, one declared aim of the Zionist revolution was to create a new human being, the opposite of the old Jew in the diaspora. Jewish sovereignty and even just the struggle for sovereignty was central to this new type. The new Jew had to be the exact opposite of the old Jew. Zionism was at one with European anti-Semitism in rejecting the traditional Jewish image. In fact, Jabotinsky, the right-wing Zionist leader, wrote explicitly about rejecting that image. Another scholar whose work also contributes to this range of thought and would be actively suppressed, expresses views that are sort of actively suppressed by the Israel lobby, is that of Yaakov Rabkin, an Orthodox Jewish historian and emeritus professor at the University of Montreal. He wrote 20 years ago in his 2004 book on a century of Jewish opposition to Zionism about how loyalty to Israel replaced allegiance to Judaism. And he quotes a Jewish organization veteran referring to Jewish community McCarthyism, where questioning Israel throws into question not your political judgment, but your Judaism. This Jewish organization veteran noted during Ariel Sharon's regime a project that has now become explicit among right-wing forces in the Jewish community, basically since last October. And she wrote that if a kind of Jewish excommunication is achieved, then Zionism will forever distort and even threaten to destroy the diversity of diasporic Jewishness. Rabkin pays considerable attention to this as an Orthodox Jew. Zionism will turn out to be the greatest peril that the Jewish diaspora has ever faced. His lengthy discussion also concerns, for instance, Jacob de Haan, a Dutch-born cantor who joined the Zionist movement, but subsequently became critical of it and joined forces with anti-Zionist rabbis to build a political organization that would establish cooperative relations with Arab leaders. De Haan was assassinated by Zionist agents in 1924. Finally, I'll mention the work of Ella Shohat, an Iraqi Jewish scholar whose 1988 essay on the Sephardic and Mizrahi communities in Israel and the ways in which the European Zionist project erased centuries of the history of Arab Jews is classic scholarship. She points out, as does Rabkin, Beit Halachmi, and others, that Zionism was a minority grouping in the Jewish community, be it in the Arab world that she focuses on, or as Rabkin, Beit Halachmi, and others focus on in Europe in the period prior to World War II. But this non-Zionist and anti-Zionist history has largely been erased from Jewish community education and is suppressed by the Israel lobby, just as the history of the Palestinian Nakba is suppressed by the lobby. And unfortunately, this act of suppression forms part of a broader epistemology of ignorance that replaces learning about centuries of Jewish life with the empty land propaganda that my colleagues today have discussed. Thank you.